Well, in the interest of time, because I know this is going to be a fun-filled, information-packed webinar, I'm going to get started. Welcome to the Create Bridges webinar series, specifically the Creating and Implementing an Effective Training, the I Got Your Back program. And I'm super excited about, I hope you guys tell us how you got that name, because that's awesome. And I'm going to just real briefly, I want to tell you a little bit about Create Bridges if you didn't already know. The Create Bridges program is we're aiming to strengthen retail, accommodations, tourism, entertainment in rural communities. And we have two phases of this program going on. The first being Kentucky, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, and the second, North Carolina, New Mexico, and Illinois, all who are represented today, except for Arkansas. I don't know what we're doing today. It's raining, maybe we're sleepy. But our efforts with these webinars, we pulled this information from a pretty aggressive BR business retention and expansion program across all 6 states, as well as anonymous employee perspective surveys, and we culled these into 6 topics that we feel are the most effective and responsive to the information we gathered. So today's session of effective training is probably one of those prominent issues in workforce today. So I'm very excited that these 3 amazing women are going to be talking about it. Really brief bios. We sent them in the email, but like I told them, if I started talking about all their accomplishments, we would be here for the rest of the hour. But Becky Bowen is the program manager of Cultivate NC. If you don't know, NC stands for North Carolina. I'm assuming, I could be wrong, which is an community and economic development program at North Carolina State Extension, attorney license in North Carolina, Minnesota, and has a tremendous amount of experience, and also is formerly part of the Stronger Economies Together, the SET program, which was a Create Bridges precursor. And she's also the state lead for Create Bridges in North Carolina too, and so we're pretty excited about this. Alyssa Hashmini, am I saying that right? I should have asked. Did I say it right?
Alyssa Hashimi, you were close.
I'm so close. She has moved to she moves to attend West Carolina University, proud resident of Sylva, North Carolina. Woo! And has been working with Create Bridges for just a few months, but has already made an indelible difference. And then Annie Wilson from West Carolina University, so is an assistant professor of psychology, specializing in industrial organizational psychology, and has been supporting this program since the fall. So with that, I could go, these bios are much longer, so I do encourage you to read those emails because truly fascinating experiences. But with that, I will hand it over and let's start learning.
All right, thank you, Julianne. And hello, everyone. I'm going to share the screen. All right, I think all of you can see this now. So as Julianne said, I'm Becky Bowen at NC State Extension, and I am the project lead for Create Bridges in the Mountain West region of North Carolina. And what we're going to be talking about today is the Got Your Back Business Summit, and how we arrived at this particular training and how we're hoping that it will live on in the future. So, I just scroll here. So this is the logo for the Got Your Back training. And what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to give you a little background about the research. And then Annie is going to be talking about the actual design of the training and her role in it. And then Eli is going to be talking about the marketing of the training. And then in the 4th section of our presentation today, Julianne's going to ask the panel some questions about how we expect this training to live on. The first, background and research. So as Julianne described, the Create Bridges project is all about strengthening the retail, accommodation, entertainment, and tourism sectors. We are in the Mountain West region of North Carolina. You can see in the logo for the Mountain West Partnership above, who are our primary partners in this project. We are just west of Asheville. We are the 7 or so counties just west of Asheville, but we're most known probably for the Great Smoky Mountains. So just to give you a visual, an idea geographically as to where we're located. Also, as Julianne mentioned, the Create Bridges initiative was launched to develop the Create sectors, which most of you are already familiar with, but they are retail, accommodation, tourism, and entertainment sectors. So NC State Extension has been facilitating the process in Western North Carolina. And I do want to mention that our steering committee is comprised of just folks from all walks of life. We do have the business sector represented in our steering committee, but also higher ed, economic development. We also have the school systems involved. We have workforce development, just a whole host of folks who are very interested in strengthening the economy in that region because we are a very tourism dependent region. So this right here is the Create Bridges process. I spoke a little bit about forming the regional steering committee. We spent quite a bit of time, almost a year, on the research phase, which is conducting the business retention and expansion program and distributing employee engagement. Before that, we did have some public forums where we gathered public input to determine what is it that we needed to do to strengthen these sectors. Now, starting in January, we finalized our plan for strategic direction in the Mountain West region, and now we are implementing just a variety of strategies. So in our strategic plan, we identified the problem, which most of you are aware of, is that there's been a whole lot of emphasis on developing manufacturing professional services, but very little emphasis in the past, especially with our economic developers, on strengthening the retail, accommodation, tourism, and entertainment sectors. So what Create Bridges is all about is strengthening those sectors so that our businesses, like all businesses across the country now, are really, really suffering with inadequate labor force. And what we're hoping to do is to create a region that is known for creating a positive employee experience for employees in that workforce sector. So as part of our public forums, we did identify our strengths. This is our word bubble, and you can see that the Mountain West region of North Carolina is very, very much known for its outdoor recreational experiences, just breathtaking venues. If you have not been to Western North Carolina, I really encourage you to come there because it is just a fabulous place to visit. And I don't live there, but Annie and Eli do, and I'm sure that they love the fact that they live there. Just briefly, again, on that research side, with Create Bridges, everything that we're doing is very much evidence-based. And in our strategic plan, we do study the tourism industry in particular, showing that it has very much increased over the past 10 years in this particular region, whereas the U.S. overall has decreased. And tourism makes up 11.5% of total employment in the region, which is significant. Okay, so as part of our strategic planning, we focused on 3 opportunities: placemaking, workforce development, and regional collaboration. Our goals were divided into 3 goals: to improve the Create business viability, to increase the Create employee career growth potential, and to enhance the public support for the CREATE sector. We're only going to focus today on our Goal 1 strategies, and you can see them here, expanding the labor pool, promoting regional marketing of all of these CREATE businesses in the Mountain West region, as well as enhancing communication and networking. So our Goal 1 strategies responded to the needs that were expressed by the CREATE business owners in our business retention and expansion survey, as well as some focus groups and other interviews that we conducted in the spring of 2021. So on this slide, you see strategy 1.1, which is all about expanding the labor pool. And you can see 4 different sub-strategies or action steps, however you want to call them. And what we're going to focus on in particular today is that last one, which is create and promote Got Your Back business recognition and programming. And I do want to give just a little bit of a backstory about how we came up with the name. What that used to be was we called it the Opportunity Business Recognition and Programming. It came out as an idea from just one of our stakeholders who sent me an email. She actually had not raised it as a possibility in some of our planning sessions, our separate meetings, but she sent me an email afterwards saying, you know, I think it would be really, really important if we showcase these businesses, show that they will have their employees back whenever employees are in some sort of confrontation with a customer or what have you, or that they also recognize that these employees deserve the chance for other professional opportunities. You know, how can they climb the career ladder in this sector? So that's how we came up with the Got Your Back business name. And our intention is that once the businesses attend the trainings, they'll receive a sticker with that logo that you saw at the beginning, saying that they are a Got Your Back business. Annie, on to you now.
All right. So as far as designing the content for this training program, we wanted to be really careful in considering our audience, but also, as Becky mentioned, keeping the design within evidence-based practices. So this is something that we were kind of talking a little bit about before the meeting with Julianne, that you know, we're not always really good at creating effective training programs. So so we really wanted this program to be rooted in evidence-based practices. You can go to the next slide, Becky. So in general, the way I'm going to kind of talk about developing this program is talking about creating effective training programs in general, but then also specifically how that translates to how we created this program. So in general, this is kind of the flow of developing training programs. The first thing is to do needs assessment. And this determines what the training needs are, who do we need to train, and on what. So this can help us avoid wasting time and resources on training things that aren't needed or training people who don't necessarily need that training. It seems obvious, but surprisingly, needs assessments don't really happen. So this is definitely the first step that's really important. The second step is to set objectives. And we want to set objectives so that it will be clear what we aim to accomplish with training. And objectives should be made clear to trainees from the get-go of training as well. Next, designing the training program. There are several different options here as far as what the training program will look like and how it's delivered. And so kind of going through some of that evidence and considering, again, our audience. Because the design of the training program should heavily depend on the audience and the purpose of the training. Delivering the training to those employees or business owners or whoever it is who are designated as needing the training from the needs assessment. Again, many options for delivery of training to consider. And then finally, the final and most important step is evaluating the training program to be sure that we met the objectives that we set out to meet. And if not, it should be modified or discontinued. So evaluation is so incredibly important with training programs, and unfortunately, it's really not common practice. So this is something that we really want to make sure that we do once training is completed. Next slide. Some of my slides my content isn't showing up, but that's okay. We'll go with it. So in general, conducting this training needs assessment typically starts with an organizational analysis, making sure that we're tying our training objectives and training needs to organizational goals, making sure that we're getting buy-in from management, as well as considering the training climate. How supportive is the climate in the workplace of training. The next step is then to look at a job or task analysis. What are we training and who needs to be trained? Identify what the training should be on and where performance is lacking, specific tasks, positions, etc. So this will really help us pinpoint exactly what training needs to be done. And then finally, a person analysis will help us identify who needs to be trained. Assessing employees or business owners in this case to determine who needs to be trained and on what. And then finally, getting employee buy-in is really, really, really important here. So we need to frame the training in a way that promotes buy-in from those various stakeholders that we're talking to. So specifically for the Got Your Back training example, as Becky mentioned, during phase 1, we gathered that data from various businesses in the region in those create sectors to see what they needed. And overall, we are seeing that both employers and employees in our region want workforce development and help with retention. So less employee turnover, better trainings, more sense of community within the workplace, etc. So from this data, that Got Your Back business idea kind of was born, and we kind of took it from there and ran with it. Next slide. So the next step is setting our training objectives. So in general, we want to be really clear on the purpose of the training and also defining the criteria of success. So we have our purpose and our objectives, but also, someone who has completed this training successfully should be able to do X, Y, and Z. And this starts by stating those objectives. We also want to consider transfer of training, which is really just being able to implement what we've trained on in the workplace. And so can employees or business owners or whoever we're training apply what they've learned from this training to their job? And this is the ultimate objective of training, right? We want to be able to transfer this into the work environment. We really, during setting training objectives, we really want to be very mindful of the audience and consider those training characteristics. And so, some of these can be ability, cognitive and other abilities, personality traits can factor in here. Not everyone learns at the same pace, right? We know from evidence-based practices that learning styles are not necessarily evidence-based, but people have different learning preferences. So those kinds of things should be considered as well. So specifically with the Got Your Back training example here, this opportunity business idea, emerged from that during our phase 2 planning after we did that phase 1 data collection. And we're really thinking about how to support regional businesses and creating opportunities for their employees, meeting those needs that were expressed in our initial assessment. So we chose the workshop design to allow for training transfer since we've identified our audience as business owners in the region for this first training, that we figured that the workshop delivery system would really help with that training transfer. And we also really have highlighted tangible takeaways. So I think this is something that in academia and in kind of the planning world, we can have all these great ideas and create all these great training programs, but we don't always think about what are people leaving with in their hands that they can implement immediately on their jobs, or in this case, in their businesses. So we really wanted to highlight those tangible takeaways as part of the objectives of this training program. Next slide. So this is a kind of a snapshot from our marketing materials highlighting those tangible takeaways that we plan to have available during this training program, and really helped us organize the training around these tangible takeaways. So strategies to handle workplace conflicts. This is something that we've heard a lot from business owners and from employees. Customize employee contracts and evaluations. This is something that I have found a lot of small businesses in these industries, in these create industries, don't use employee contracts. And so what they're doing then is relying on that psychological contract, which can be misinterpreted from many different directions. So if we just do a simple employee contract, it outlines what the employer expects of the employees, as well as what the employee can expect from the employer. And so this can be really beneficial for these small businesses. And we can also tie these contracts directly to performance evaluations that can be used within the business. Context and information on expanding those employee benefits that may not be super costly. Coaching tips, of course, providing feed on various things, but also specifically providing feedback to employees, and kind of best practices for providing feedback, as well as a guide to help you select the best people. We're not focusing strictly on retention. We also want to touch on recruitment as well, and then many more tangible takeaways that will be available to people who attend this training. So we really wanted to highlight those actionable strategies that are evidence-based, and tie these to practice as well. Next slide. So designing training programs in general, there are several things that we want to keep in mind. And one of those things is kind of consider general principles within training. And this is really focusing on teaching the why, not just the how. So providing background on whatever we're training gives context that facilitates learning. So highlighting this big picture of why, why do we need to do this training? Why do we need to get everybody on board with these specific things that are covered in this training? Really providing that big picture can be very helpful for learning in general. Another thing to consider with designing training programs is considering identical elements, trying to match up similarity between the training setting and the work setting as much as possible. Overlearning is another thing we try to keep in mind with designing training programs, and overlearning is just as it sounds, really creating opportunities where we can have additional practice to correct performance. And overlearning is really believed to lead to superior retention and automaticity. So really just overlearning in training sessions that can transfer to on the job really leads to long-term retention and makes those things automatic to people who have been trained. Considering sequencing and timing as well is really important, and this sequencing can really address some of these timing issues that we see. So even if we do overlearning, even if we've created a great training program, over time, if people aren't using it regularly, it can, be unlearned. So sequencing can help with this. So considering part versus whole training. So delivering a part, learning one piece at a time over an amount of time, or delivering whole, doing the whole training in one sitting. And of course, this depends on resources that are available for training and time that can be committed to training. But overall, what we see is doing part over time can be really beneficial for learning. Another thing to consider is the length of time between training trials. And this really comes from cognitive psychology, how our brains work and how we learn. Massed practice versus spaced practice. Mass practice is long, doing long training trials, a few or a single long training trial, whereas space practice would be many short training trials. And what we see in the literature is that spaced training really is the most beneficial for retention over time. So doing part learning pieces at a time and spaced, over a period of time can be really beneficial to long-term retention. Of course, this is not always realistic, right? For our Got Your Back training, we really, again, are considering our audience and knowing that business owners don't have, multiple days over the next several months to contribute to training. And so that's kind of why we landed on doing a massed whole training for this in one day that will also have follow-ups, and I'll kind of touch on that later. And then finally, providing feedback during training programs is really, really beneficial and very necessary for learning. So providing feedback when something is correct, when something is incorrect. Feedback can be built into different learning activities within training, and also can be provided by test and evaluation of training. So in general, these are kind of our basic principles that we need to stick with designing training programs. Specifically with Got Your Back, we made sure that we tied those objectives of this training to those challenges that were identified by business owners in the region. Recruitment and retention were huge for our regional businesses right now. This provides that context of the Great Resignation that businesses large and small are facing as a huge challenge right now. And so we can stick this training in that larger context, that bigger picture. Looking at those identical elements, we highlighting those tangible takeaways, as well as including some role playing, which will be fun. We're excited to do the role playing. We have over-learning elements in here as well. Many workshops that tie in similar objectives and goals allows business owners opportunity to practice and to communicate with each other and to really drive home those really important pieces. And again, we had to really consider our audience here, and we decided on a one-day, full-day workshop series that will allow for follow-ups with the small business centers, with the various consultants in the region over the next several months. After we do this one-day training, it won't just be that, right? We're considering that sequencing and the timing and doing follow-ups with business owners over the next several months. And then finally, of course, feedback is always important. We'll be providing feedback throughout the entire day, as well as collecting evaluation at the end of the day. So training delivery, we have lots of different options for training delivery. A really common one right now is auto instruction, where you'll do an online training. I'm sure we've all done these, where you just kind of click through to the end. Maybe there's a question or two that you answer. What we see is that even though these are convenient for people to complete, it doesn't really promote learning. So kind of considering all these different ways that we can deliver training, I think is really important. And not just what's most convenient for people, because of course, with our Got Your Back training, an auto instruction, or webinars that they could go back and watch later would be easier for business owners. But it's really just not the most effective as far as learning and training. And so that's kind of why we ended on that workshop style. We'll use audio visual, so we'll have a presentation as well as speakers. We're doing it that summit conference style, where we're all together all day, using role playing and modeling. So again, considering the time business owners have to devote to something like this, and really considering the audience is really key here. Next slide. And then finally, and most importantly, is the evaluation of training. So this is the most important step that is really never done. And so, evaluation of training is imperative. Unfortunately, not a common practice. It's important to determine, though, if this training was effective. And there are various steps involved, developing the criteria for what success looks like, right? So training criteria should always include reactions These are those kind of affective reactions. We call them smile sheets. How much did you enjoy this training? Questions like that. But then also questions to assess learning and performance criteria. So did the trainees learn? What are they taking away from this training? Where are the organizational benefits? Looking at assessments of outcomes on the job, looking at sales and costs and turnover and all of these things long term, right? As far as how successful was this training over time. Designing the evaluation, two main evaluations that are used for training programs are pre and post designs, where you would assess knowledge before training and then also after training, or just a post design where you're looking at, okay, how, asking those evaluation questions at the end of the training. How do you feel like you learned from this? Do you feel like you gained knowledge from this training? Those types of things. So collecting all of that data from all the trainees and analyzing and interpreting it. And ultimately, I always tell my students that scientists, we should be humble, right? If something that we put together didn't work the way we thought it did, then we need to go back and fix it and change it, and ineffective training programs should be modified or discontinued. And this is another thing that I think is not common practice, unfortunately. So particularly with the Got Your Back training example, we plan to do pre and post evaluation. So at the beginning of our training day, having people give us how comfortable are you with retention strategies, or how comfortable are you with your leadership skills at this point, or whatever that is, right? Looking at several points. And then also doing post evaluations. So how much do you feel like you learned on these different topics throughout the day? And this will help us determine what the business owners actually learned during this training and how confident they are in addressing their personnel concerns before and after this training. It's important, again, to get those reactions, those happy sheets, as well as those performance indicators. And these data are essential for helping us know if this training worked and what needs to be changed for the next time we conduct a training like this. And that's all for me. On to Eli.
Good afternoon, everybody. So this leads us to marketing and implementation. This was a very serendipitous grouping. You've heard from Becky, you've heard from Annie, and I am so tickled to get an opportunity to work with them. They are clear with me. They come from academic land, and they plucked me, who has 20 years of experience in hospitality, in management here in our region. I also have, at the beginning of the pandemic, started a social media group to keep the community connected. It thus turned into supporting local business. So business owners had reached out to me over these past 2 years, and they had shared specific challenges they were facing. So to find Annie and Becky, and after this 18 months of meetings and group thinks and emails in trying to create something for our region that would be useful, well, then we all meet, right? So we take it from an opportunity business training to what is of our area. And conversations, like Becky had mentioned, led to, you want to work for somebody who has your back, right? And a lot of what everybody's facing, as everybody knows all over, is retaining that staff, right? How many signs do you see that says closed due to staffing issues? So really getting in there and saying, okay, here is what people need, and how can we make that translatable so that they know that they need it? And that's what we're up to. Okay, so next slide, please, Becky. In sitting with meetings with our peers from Create Bridges and all the various phases, they let us know, don't spend too much time creating something and forget to market it, right? So the biggest fear was all of this hard work and all of these conversations and the planning. You build it, and do they come? So again, in making it something of our area to appeal to business owners, keeping in mind these aren't folks primarily who go to workshops, who attend conferences, who are used to paying a fee to spend a day. We also talked about a lot of people, a lot of business owners in hospitality and retail currently, in all the sectors, they're working the shifts themselves, right? So in order to pull somebody in for a shift that they might normally work, to pay them to cover it, and then to give us money and trust us for an entire day, that didn't really sound that fun. So we were very careful with our buy-in. We all talked about skin in the game. It would be easy to say you would be there, but then you have a staffing issue, you have something come up, you don't show up. So keeping up gas prices and knowing that we're asking people to drive from all over our Western North Carolina region, we put it at $20. We took it out of a boardroom setting and we rented out the pavilion of a regional business, right? So it's also a fun space. It's one people are familiar with, but it's also giving back to regional business. So that is what I mean by targeting your audience. Like, who is your audience? It's not folks that go to conferences and workshops all the time. These are people that are usually in their business most of all the time. And when they're not, they're getting ready to go back in. So we needed to make it approachable and sound fun. We also want to celebrate these folks. They've been through 2 years of a lot of challenges. So we wanted to give them the opportunity to come together and make it fun for them. Next slide, please, Becky. So all of this work is going to take more than popping in with a flyer. We've been calling this active marketing, all right? You're not talking to someone who maybe checks their email all the time. You're not talking to someone who is the face of a large entity. You're talking to people. So we came up with, all right, there's a lot of us in this area. It is a rural area where a lot of people know each other. So instead of cold calling, let's divide and conquer. Who knows who? Whose kid went to school with who grew up at the same high school, right? Who goes to the same church? Instead of it being, hi, I'm Eli from Create Bridges, it was, hi, I'm your friend from high school. We go to the same church. This is something that I'm involved with for 18 months. Really think you'd benefit. And then setting the tone for me to come in as the warm call, which has been awesome. And using those existing channels. We have chambers. We have merchants associations. It's not that you have to take, I believe in our sector, it's about 400, it's right under 500 businesses. You don't have to create a mass email list. They already exist. And from people that they know and they trust and they work with, and they know, hey, if they're talking about this, if it's their seal of approval, okay, you have my attention, right? So not reinventing the wheel there. And again, the takeaway from this is engaging and enrolling folks. It's one thing to pique their interest. It's another to actually have them go, I'm going to clear the day. I'm going to be there. I'm going to register. It's going to be more than an email. Next slide, please, Becky. The why. Annie spoke on this. I believe Becky did too. We really had to keep reminding ourselves, as you get into the technicals, as you get into the dates and all of these things. Why are we doing this? And what's the urgency? Why now? Why not a year ago? Why not down the road? And why would they want to come? And we've been asked by people, feedback has been so important in this entire process. We've been asked, what makes this any different than anything else that's been offered over the 2 years? What makes it relevant? What would I actually get out of it? So I'm going to sit in a room all day, right? Well, in my naivete, when I was speaking with people, we'll take an example. I'd reached out to a local business owner. She owns several businesses. And I was asking her if maybe there was an incentive that she could put into our virtual swag bag. And the beginning of the call was absolutely not. I don't even know if this business is going to last 3 more months. This business all of the employees have fallen off the face of the earth. And I completely shifted into listening. I wasn't trying to sell her anything. I was listening. She said, I was up at 2 a.m. ordering books about how to deal with difficult people. right? So then I realized, you know what? In hearing her needs and her concerns, her specific challenges, and not assuming what they are, that's where I was able to really be with her and say, actually, we're going to be addressing that. And we're going to use de-escalation tactics. We're going to allow you to say, what's that one customer experience that you went through? Maybe you lost an employee over, it's kept you up at night. Maybe it led into Yelp reviews that bullied you, right? Because most business owners coming through the past 2 years have that experience. And the fact that we would be able to let them vent in front of each other and act out that mean customer and how they responded, and let everybody say, well, here's how I would have, or here's how I did. And then have some experts come in and go, now, you all tried really hard. I applaud you, I acknowledge you, but here are tactics that you can actually use in the heat of the moment to protect your employees, to let them know you have their back, and to not feel so vulnerable in that situation. So being able to really go into listening and being with her and not assuming that her issue was this or that, it took me down a notch in my approach, and it taught me a lot. So I think we covered everything in this one. Next slide, please, Becky. The value of feedback. And that is just what we were talking about. When people share their experiences with you, when they're honest with you, again, this is not via email. This is one-to-one, right? You're learning from that. And then allow that to inform the training. Maybe we focus a little bit more on this aspect than we thought we were going to, because here's what I'm hearing people need. This is what's kept them up at night. So it's very important to listen to them and let that inform the direction that you're taking it. Okay, next slide, please. Purpose and pitch. Yes, we're trying to sell them on the idea of coming. Very true. And you also don't want to be the person, if you've ever worked in retail or a restaurant, you know what it's like to have somebody showing up with a flyer. Can I speak to your manager? Can I speak to your owner? Can I leave a number? And oftentimes, especially over the past 2 years, you're almost like the barricade to protect the owner because they have enough going on. You're kind of a filter, right? Oh, it's Google calling again. So in not showing up in that way, in showing up, yeah, I am here to pitch you something, but really going back to why, what's your purpose? Create Bridges. All of us who are probably in this meeting, our passion, our purpose is to let these businesses know we support you. We support you. And a lot of the feedback we've heard from business owners down main streets is we felt like our specific town just didn't care. We felt so unsupported. We didn't feel connected. Well, guess what? That's our purpose. We've got all of these, we've got Mountain West, Create Bridges, Extension. All these people do care. They've been hard at work for 18 months in our region. And this is our first offering. And this is the first of many. And this is the beginning of support. Okay, so just purpose versus pitch. Yeah, you're pitching it, but it's your purpose. It's your way of being. It's how you listen to them that is going to have them say, you know what? I'll figure out how to be there. Next slide, please. The follow through. So it's one thing to have somebody have that moment with you and go, this sounds great. Yes. And then they go into all the other things that they have to do, or maybe they just said that to make you go away, right? So the follow through is important. You do want to send them that registration link. You can maybe have them register right there. But something else we've found is kind of a net is most of these business owners are on Facebook, or their staff is. So we've created a group so they can just jump in there, right? It's going to show up in their feed. It's going to remind them, oh, that got your back thing. Yeah. And then they also get to peek. We made it a public group. Who else is in there? Who else is interested? Who else is showing up? Who can you carpool with, right? And the event is there and the registration link. Now, as Annie touched on, why? The why is important, but the what do I get is even more important. So we, in talking to Annie and Becky, who've been to many a conference They're like, we don't need another swag bag. We don't need more pens and more pads and koozies, right? So we made a virtual swag bag. What is this? It's the gift that keeps on giving. All right. By attending in your virtual swag bag, one of the things I'm most excited about is you get a one-on-one counseling session with a small business coach, right? For free. It's in there. You can cash in whenever you want. It can be about any aspect of your business that you need it to. Okay, so that right there, we have resources in our area. We have a small business center. We've got bigger ones than that, but there's a lot of confusion of, well, my business is 10 years old. I think they only do. There's so much confusion about it. We're bringing it straight to you. If you're in this room, you get this. They can also meet with Annie for an hour and get the, it's kind of unlimited, however they want to use that. Another thing we're really excited about is we will be talking about digital marketing, but you get a 2-minute commercial for your business. Now, it's not the very next day, but within a certain amount of time, we're bringing in a film crew. We're going to give a nice commercial, kind of like a window peek into your business. And then you can use that on your website, on your social media, however you see fit. Awesome bonus. We're also creating a business-to-business portal so that everyone who attends can speak to each other. In researching that, we've also found out our chambers offer all sorts of neat things where people within the chamber can bid on jobs and it's private. Well, they say a lot of people don't participate because a lot of people don't know. So we're not reinventing the wheel. We're also showing them, well, here's what already is here. This is free for you, right? And in our group, they will be able to reach out to each other as well. And we'll have networking events. By being part of the 26th Got Your Back Business Summit, you will be involved with networking events where you can cross-promote your business, right? So the restaurant folks can meet the zip-lining folks, and they're pushing each other's businesses. And we are seeing across county lines, right? It's just miles. If you're in the region, you're in the region. And those will actually include resource fairs, things that just for their business, employee assistance network, things like that maybe they don't know about. We'll have those folks directly there for them. We'll have food. It'll be kind of a night out. We'll have 2 of those, kind of split them so we can cover all of our 5 counties. So those are just some of the ideas of what the swag bag incentives are for us, as well as that registration fee, which, like everybody said, is skin in the game. Because you're going to wake up that day, something's going to happen, right? The dishwasher didn't show up. I guess I better go, well, you spent $20. So you're already kind of in there, right? Okay, next slide, please, Becky. Oh, that was me. That was it. Thank you for letting me talk.
Well, lady, this was a tremendous amount of information, and I went and found your website. So I dropped that in the chat so people wanted to look and copy paste. But if everyone wants to show up on April 26th in Silva, we are down. So I have a couple of questions for the panel, and we have about 10 minutes. So I'm gonna ask a couple and then drop an evaluation question in the chat. But this is the first, as I understand, the first big strategy for Create Bridges. And like, what do you see? Like, a few of you mentioned it, but like in a succinct way, what do you see the impact of if you get as many employers going through this as possible? What do you see like the immediate impact of this strategy?
Yeah, I just succinctly, like we said, we mentioned that this is the first of many, so we're starting with business owners. We're going to do those networking events. And then in the fall, we plan to kind of shift focus to employees and conduct trainings for employees that employers have requested. But long term, Becky and Eli and I have talked a lot about this. We would really like for our region to become known as a place where people want to work, in general. This is, this training program is really focused on creating, a workplace culture that that promotes retention, where people will want to work and people will want to stay, right? These are industries where you have students coming through who are just working, for a little while part-time, and they're going to move on. But we also have people who are going to be in these industries for their life. And so thinking about, creating these workplace cultures where people want to stay, and people want to work here, long-term goals. Becky, if you have anything you want to add.
Well, you covered it perfectly, Annie. I mean, obviously the short-term impact is we have hopefully 50 businesses who will attend this training. And we're hopeful that it will be such a positive experience for them that they will spread the word. And of course, the trainings will live on websites of our higher education institutions that are involved with the development and design of the training. The other thing that we hope will come of it, like Annie was saying, is that we'll become this region that is recognized not only by potential workers as a great place to work and live because of all of the incredible outdoor amenities in the region, but also that, visitors who come will also recognize this, that we're a very unique region in that we really care about the people who work.
So just like some casual goals for the region. I love it. But like really worthwhile. But so like you said, this is the first one, but how is this one like how are you leveraging this one to the rest of your strat? Like how is this the bend, like the starting point? How does you get to the next things?
One of the exciting parts that we'll be doing on the 26th is letting people anonymously text questions, right? And discussing that. If you missed this one, we're going to hope you come to the following one. But something we're going to be doing is asking them about the staff training. What do you want that to be, right? And setting the stage for that, definitely.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead, Annie.
Eli, went into detail about the virtual swag bag, which has, kind of some long-term benefits for business owners who participate. And as I mentioned, we're going to move on to trainings for employees in the fall. And one of those things that we really want to focus on is a kind of a We Speak campaign, where we have employees from businesses in the region supporting other businesses in the region. So maybe your waiter at a restaurant in Silva has a badge that says "I speak fly fishing" and can give you tips on who to contact for fly fishing, or whitewater rafting, or zip lining, or retail, or whatever else it is that you're looking for. So this is kind of contributing to that larger businesses supporting each other feel over time.
I'm going to veer, sorry, at the interest of time, and you guys gave me 3 questions and I am already gone wild. But one thing I wanted to ask specifically, like you guys have really done a lot of research and thought into creating this, but for someone in a different state, like what's the first step if they had to do one step to get to this program, to have a Got Your Back Oklahoma or Got Your Back New Mexico? Like what's the first thing, having gone through the process, that they need to do first?
My suggestion is that assessment. You have to know what it is that businesses need from you. And as I think we all kind of touched on, it's important to listen because they're the experts, right? Like we're here to provide supports and we have expertise to add, but they're the industry experts. They've been living this and running these businesses. And I think it's, I know here in Silva, sometimes it can be leave a bad taste in people's mouth when someone from Western Carolina University comes through and is like, I'm going to show you how to run your business, and that keeping that in mind, that like you're the expert, like you tell me, like how can I support you? So gathering that data and doing that initial assessment is so incredibly important. We can't go in just thinking we know what people need. We have to hear from them what it is that they need.
And I just want to add that we have had just an incredible group of members in our steering committee who Annie actually wasn't part of our steering committee in the beginning, but she heard through the grapevine that we were interested in developing programming that would fit the needs of the employers. And so she jumped on board, and then it just generated a conversation throughout the region, and everyone that we talked to is just really, really excited about it.
It's incredibly thorough. Like if you're looking at the agenda for the day, it is every issue that we're having in workforce, both as a supervisor and an employee. So that is like a huge benefit. I especially love the components about the diversity and equity and providing feedback, which you also talked about, because when we talk to our employees, a lot of them are like, my feedback is so negative, I don't want to be here. And that's not anyone's fault. It's just like nobody knows how to give proper feedback where it doesn't shut somebody down. So the last question is, that this Cray Bridges is term limited. So like, how do you make sure that how do you ensure that this is keeping going on? And like, not just in North Carolina, but like, how do you think other states can ensure that this kind of training can go on beyond like when our initial funding is available?
So because we have great representation from the Chambers of Commerce and other resource providers in the region, we're hopeful that, they'll take the ball and run with this. We know that the trainings themselves, we've hired a well-known videographer in the region who puts his own special spin on it to make training seem more interesting. So we're just hopeful that it will catch on through word of mouth, through the attendees who have who's been there and experienced it, and that they'll create the demand that it be offered again in the future. But the other thing that I've heard from our regional economic council is that they think that there is other funding out there. We have now created a plan that targets the sector, and so they're going to go after big money now. So we're hoping for that.
Big money, big money.
And also rooting it in the way that the backpack for our area, what do you want in your backpack? What are those tools? Can we help you carry the weight? And the creative way that Annie went through the day. And so there's trail maps, there's hiking boots, leadership, right? Everything's kind of in there. So I believe making it regional is important for its staying power. It's applicable to our area. So I believe that there's that niche for every area that'll make it, when you see that backpack for years, that's our goal. That's the place you want to work. That's a place that takes care of their folks. That's a place that can handle stuff and did a little extra training to find out how.
I love this like pure infusion of marketing from the beginning, like that it's totally recognizable to other ones, and it's almost like a sense of FOMO. Like if you're not part of this training, you are missing out. Also, like the commitment to probably on all 6 states, our outdoor recreation is our biggest piece of tourism, and like the concept of a backpack, like really appeals to me, because who doesn't love a good backpack? Yeah. I love you guys. I mean, it's very like recognizable and branded, and that is so fantastic. Like, and that's usually like the last thing people think of, and what a great takeaway to like from the beginning, your name, everything should be recognizable. And I love the little stickers on the businesses. I mean, I feel like I have FOMO already because I can't come on April 26th. The commute is murder. But any last thought? It's 11 o'clock. So any last thoughts? For those listening, please feel free to leave your one takeaway in the chat so that we can ensure to highlight some of this on the recording. But is Becky, Ely, and Annie, anything that you would like to say as we wrap up?
Thank you for having us, and thank you for watching.
Yeah, and we're available. You can get our contact information, and happy to collaborate.
Oh, feel free to drop
Yeah,
your email in the chat so that they can harass you at will.
and I really appreciate all the support that the Create Bridges team, the national team, has given to us on this project. So thank you.
Well, you know what they say, we all love a little R&D, rip off and duplicate. So feel free to, this is such a great idea and program, and really well thought out. And I hope people who are on today are able to get some takeaways to apply to their own workforce trainings and their own frontline supervisor trainings, so that we can amplify the quality of this workforce. So thank you all for attending. This is being recorded, of course, as you were well informed when you started, but we will share for later if you want to reference. And Annie, Eli, and Becky are sharing their emails in the chat. But thank you so much, Annie, Eli, and Becky. This was amazing. And I'm very impressed with this, and I can't wait to hear how the April 26th one goes. And thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.